Welcome, everybody, to the book launch for Side Street Poems by Elliot Rubin. We're so happy to have everybody here today. And we're going to start out with a video. One moment while I get that set up. So happy to have everybody here today. Congratulations to Elliot for making it. And how many books does this make now, Elliot?
42.
42. 42 books. And how many poetry books out of that?
Well, there's 42 poetry books, 8 crime novels, 3 books of Jewish humor, and 1 book that I took off sale because it was just too far, triple X.
Oh, a little too spicy for as older folks that might not have good hearts, right? Speaking for myself, no, I still have a good heart. But anyway. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad to have you here today. I wanted to talk for a minute with Elliot. I had some questions I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to know a little bit more about what made you decide to become a poet.
Well, to start at the beginning, I was closing my business down from the 2010 recession, and I was going to retire. And I'm coming home and I'm listening to NPR radio, and the commentator was reading 3-minute stories. She said it's about 600 words. And it was interesting. People would write in and they would read their stories. So I said, I could do that because I know so many people from my years in business with the public and stories and people I've met. So I started to write. And my first book was People's Stories in 600 Words, as told by a raconteur. And it was flash fiction, and it was about 74, 75 flash fiction stories. And I almost had an agent who was interested in it. But there's no market for flash fiction, or very little. So the next day I see in the local community college, there's a continuing education class, and she was doing one, which is a combo of flash fiction and poetry. So I figured, well, I'm not interested in the poetry. Let me take the flash fiction. And in the meantime, I'd started to write novels, the crime novels. And the flash fiction, she didn't really excite me. I didn't learn anything. And then she started with the poetry, and she introduced me to Charles Bukowski. And when I walked outside, I remember I'm in the parking lot, and I said, poetry is nothing more than a short story. I don't have to write these novels that takes me 6 months to a year. I'm going to start doing poetry. And that's how I started doing poetry. I told my stories in stanzas instead of 200, 300 pages. And I always wrote concisely. So my problem when I was doing novels was filling in and bringing it up to 80 to 100,000 words. So I love the poetry. It's short, concise, to the point, and that's my strength.
It definitely is your strength. I mean, with your poetry, you could pack so much into one page. It
Thank you.
just, it's a talent to do that. It's not like you just wake up one day and start doing that. It takes a lot of work, a lot of work. And I know that you workshop your poems. Can you talk a little bit about how that works for you?
Well, a friend of mine got me into he was in it ahead of me, a critique group from Rutgers University, and Bill happened to have been in it, and that's how I met Bill. Uh, and what I liked is uh, I was really, I think, the youngest one there, or one of the younger ones, but they had retired teachers there, and some of them were English teachers, and that's where I really learned to fine tune it to a certain extent. And then from there, I just went on to other groups. Some I liked, some I didn't. But you learn from people that are better than you, uh, and sometimes you learn from people that aren't on what not to do. And and then that group disbanded, and I missed it, so I started my own group, and now I have two that I moderate, and a lot of them I find on Instagram, and they'll have a friend that'll bring someone in, and that's how the groups continue. And I try to keep it small to about 8 to 9 groups, 8 to 9 people. So we could do between 1 to 3 poems each week, and it's weekly. And some people can't keep up with the pace, which I understand. And do 1 poem, I don't care. But I try to get people that are good poets, and nobody's perfect. I found out Robert Frost had an editor, so if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
Absolutely. I know it's side street poems, kind of what the idea is behind it. Even the title kind of tells you what it's about. But can you tell me how you decided to go with side street poems and what you used to help you decide what to put in this book?
Well, this book has a lot in it. I don't this I've done some theme poetry books. I did about 3 of them, but normally I just write what hits me, and I hope people like it. Some of them, it's very hard to delete a poem. Nobody likes to kill their babies. Uh, so sometimes I'll take them out and I'll put them into the next book.
Hmm.
And then the next book, they get into the next book, like the one I just finished. But as far as side street poems, these are all poems that struck me about things that interested me, that I remembered, that I saw. The first poem in the book, when we get to my reading, I'll read it for you, was about 9/11. And I was opening a store in Woodbridge, New Jersey in 2 or 3 days. And I had owned the La-Z-Boy Furniture Galleries in northern New Jersey. And La-Z-Boy had sent 2 interior designers over to help set up the showroom floor. And I remember it was about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm trying to get there because they were going to be there at 8. And on Route 9, overpasses the turnpike, and you have a clear view of Lower Manhattan, and I saw the Twin Towers. And I said, what a beautiful day. It really was, it stuck in my mind because I saw the sun, the clouds, the towers.
It's a beautiful day.
And then I get to work, and about 15 minutes later, people start calling in. The towers were just hit with an airplane. So I saw it just before. And, that day always stuck with me. And then I had friends who worked there. Luckily, they took off that day. One took off. He was an older neighbor of mine, and I was really the only person in the neighborhood he spoke to. And he was a strange guy, but I got along with him. And he said he had taken the day off. He worked for Verizon up on the 60th, 70th floor, whatever. And he had a friend there who had a very bad heart condition. And he said, so and so would never make it down the stairs. And if I was there, I would have stayed with him. So it's stories like that that kind of hit home. And the Lazy Boy Salesman, his daughter was a statistician with ISO, which is Insurance Services Organization. They rate everything in the United States for insurance purposes. And she took off the day to go golfing. So just luck, and that's why I wrote the first poem. I was watching the memorial service a year or so ago, and that struck me, and I wrote that poem. But I'll read it when we get there.
Thank you so much, Elliot. I kind of put you on the spot with my questions, but
it's okay.
Those are some things I usually ask when I do interviews, and I wanted to get this on the podcast. Well, we're going to celebrate by having some readings of Elliot's poems, and we're going to start with Alice Hutchison. Alice, would you like to come on board?
Hi.
Hi,
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. Exciting. Should I start with the first reading?
Yes, ma'am. Just jump right in.
Okay. I'll go with it. This one is called Second Amendment. I really loved it. How does it end? Not when, but how. Gun deaths stagger the imagination. Children, parents, lovers, weddings postponed. Gravediggers become a growth career, thanks to fetid, feckless politicians. Morbid men make millions, making guns, making widows, making your beloved wait to die in supposedly safe everyday places.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great poem. Nice reading.
Thank you. Very much.
Okay, and you had a second one?
Yep, this one is Summer Day at the Beach, which I also really like. The heavy wool blanket is laid out, my wallet in a plastic bag buried in the sand under a corner, lotion smeared over my body. I lie down to stare up as the white powder puffs pass. Aimlessly, it seems overhead. I know they travelled from Chicago to look down at a deep dish pizza eaten outside on a sidewalk table, not inside, by two lovers with olive oil fingers, then floats over a farm in Indiana to watch a pig farmer throw food scraps on the ground for the fat sow and the mud-covered piglets, in Pennsylvania as it stood over the Capitol to watch a Republican official place an envelope in his jacket pocket as a lobbyist walks away smiling. Finally, it arrives over my blanket as sunshine streaks down, broil me alive, while clouds gently glide away, on their way to watch whales at sea, and my life goes on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Very
And
nice.
Alice, did you have one of your own poems that you wanted to read?
Yes, if that's, it's just a short one called Vodka Smile.
Great.
Thank you. Smiling drunk man in the kitchen. He's really lovely and has ink pen skin. He kisses my hand, leaving a residue of vodka and face with a grin.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice, for reading beautiful work.
Thank you. It's lovely to read Elliot's poems.
Yeah, his books are the type you can just, when you start reading, you don't want to stop. You just want to keep going till you have the entire book consumed and then read it again and again. Love it.
Yeah.
Our next person is Roberta Botarsky, and Roberta wrote the beautiful review on the back cover of Elliot's book. I'm going to read that to you before we bring Roberta on. Elliot Rubin delivers joy, insight, originality, social critique, and devilish wit in his new book, Side Street Poems. Imagine, if you can, a combination of Lenny Bruce, Your Mom's Rabbi, and the metaphysical poets. Elliot rummages around in the dustbins and discards of squalid New York cityscapes to expose its tawdry underbelly. With a sensitive ear for dialogue, he is a masterful portrait painter. His spare, carefully crafted lyrics create a slice for you. I'm going to skip down. She refers to the poets Charles Bukowski, Jack Kerouac, and Frank O'Hare as some of the inspirations in the poem Poetry Community. Eliot writes, "The beat poets write free form, let words and space perform, use metaphors like semaphores to tell a story, as does he in this new collection of poems. You're on high alert not to miss a word of this prodigious output." And this is Roberta Batorsky, freelance science journalist and poet. Roberta, you're on.
Oh, you kind of stole my thunder, Lisa, because one of the poems I want to read for you is Poetry Community. The two poems I picked, the short poems, I like poems about poetry that reflect on the art, and they illustrate in the best way how poetry is different from any other medium. So the first poem I'll read, which you've heard some of, is Poetry Community. Proper poets place pronouns correctly in a strict format in traditionally written poems with rhyme every time. Beat poets don't. They write free form, let words and space perform, use metaphors like semaphores to tell a story. I think it's a very beautiful, very spare, as Lisa said, very direct, not a lot of persiflage or floweriness. And that's one of the things I like about Eliot in person and also his poetry. The second poem I chose to read is called Stanzas. If only life were like a poem, the words we speak, sentences we create, would flow into stanzas to be moved about when needed or put to the side for when we decide to get back to it or even delete it. Reality is permanent. What we said or did can't be moved to tomorrow. We can't take it back. Our words and actions live forever. If only life is like a poem.
Thank you.
It's a really, really great poem.
Thank you. And Roberta, were you going to read a poem too?
Yeah, I'd like to read a very recently written kind of topical poem, which needs about a word of explanation. Because recently in New Jersey, there have been fires set by fireworks in the largest state forest in New Jersey, and which has caused some damage to trees and wildlife. The forest is called the Wharton State Forest, which has been renamed the Brendan Byrne State Forest after the former governor of New Jersey. I'm marinating my lungs in the acrid smoke wafting out of southern forests as the pines burn. Years past found me focused on blaze-festooned trunks, unlosing myself. Summer, winter too. Pre-dawn before the heat prevails, on moonlit strolls, and meteor showers on clear nights. The pines are afire. Pack-in ponds for hand-holding, kayaking at sunset. Sugar sand trails affirm the coastal plain was undersea, yield their bounty. Our heritage in loam and clay, pygmy and pitch pines, tree frogs that rule the bogs, gone in the embers, while the fires rage. Some fourth celebrants of red, white, blue ignite the dry fuel with pyrotechnic display. Hungry blazes consume our heritage in green. Pines are burning.
Oh, that's really, really good poem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me read at Eliot's book launch.
Thank you for reading. Our next guest needs an introduction. He's in every one of Eliot's book launches. He's in every one of everybody's book launches. Why is that, Sarfraz? I think it's because you love poetry so much.
I think I love poets and I love poetry and I can't get enough. I think I'm consumed by it. So I think that's why I'm here. And while I'm here, I just want to say thank you to Jill, because if it was not for Jill, Sharon Kimbleman, I would not have met Elliot, to be fair.
Yep.
Because she said to me, "You've got to meet Elliot Safraz. You've got to meet Elliot." And lo and behold, I kind of snuck in. I think I snuck into a Friday group. I didn't know where I was doing, and then I found my feet at the Wednesday group, which was all right by me in the UK. It's 9 o'clock in the UK. And sometimes I'm sat there and I'm yawning and it's really cold because it's always cold in England. But I love Elliot. And I think, to be fair, Elliot changed my life and the way I wrote, because I actually never went ever to a creative writing class until I met Elliot and the whole group, and you helped me shape my poems and I think for the better, and I've never looked back since. So thank you, Elliot. And congratulations on this book, because I often say that I need to get a big suitcase when I come to America and get all of Elliot's books. And, I can't come with an empty suitcase and buy every single book that you've done, because I just cannot get enough. So thank you, Jill, and thank you, Elliot, for mentoring and inspiring me and introducing me to Charles Bukowski, Frank O'Hara, and all the fantastic American poets. So I'm going to read from your wonderful, wonderful book. There were two poems that struck out to me. And this is a classic Eliot poem called Call Her Rhapsody, and I absolutely love it. Okay, this is called Call Her Rhapsody. She lives dangerously, body covered in colourful tattoos, lungs blackened, filled with smoke. Drinks full, bottles of liqueur, dances all night, accepts cash as she dips and bends, then grinds men's laps. On hands wander over tats, goes commando every day, loves to love in every way, always ready to engage and engorge. Thank you. And that's Call Her Rhapsody. That particular poem is, if anyone said to me, what is Eliot's style and what does he talk about and what does he write about? He writes about the underbelly of society, the world that we do not know much about. And I absolutely adore it. And I just cannot get enough. Okay, so I'm going to change the tone a bit to another poem that really struck out to me, called With You. And this is a tender side of Eliot, because when Eliot writes about certain subjects or areas, he absolutely hits the nail on the head. And this is called With You. Everything and nothing, we spoke for hours. The conversation didn't matter. We were together. Hearts spoke in silence, to be near you, to see you, to be in your presence. Love is funny like that. It's not physical all the time. Your being completes me. I need to be yours forever. Thank you. And that's With You. And that absolutely, and again, I look at these poems and they are literally very minimalistic. There's not a lot of overwriting, and I love the style. In just a few lines, Eliot says a whole story. He takes us to worlds that we do not know much of. So thank you, Eliot. So those are the two I've got there. Lisa, did you want me to read one of mine?
Yes, please.
Right. I was going to read an old one, but then I thought I'm going to read a new one that no one has heard, and hopefully will get published somewhere. So this one it's called Road Trip. I sweat the miles, scene by scene, push pedal to the metal, pump the gasoline, through the hot and cold, the turbulence and snow. My image of you won't go away, won't stray. It comes together in pieces, a jigsaw I need to fix, piece by piece, inch by inch. So I burn rubber, leave my world behind. I take you with me in my mind, an image of beauty that won't go away, reflected in the neon lights in Times Square. When I look around me, I want you to be there. Thank you. And that's called Road Trip.
That's lovely. That sounds like it would be really good for a Mascacadores. I never can say it right. Publication.
Thank you. And so I actually asked Elliot, I said, what is it about my poetry that's, very different? And he made me laugh when he said this. He goes, "You write like an American," and I actually think I do, to be fair.
You got you
So
converted.
thank you, Elliot, and congratulations. And we want more books, please. Don't stop writing ever.
Well, word has it, speaking from it as its publisher, there's another one coming out this year. So I'm just waiting for it to get into my inbox so I can work on it. So thank you so much, Sarfraz. Our next person is Jill Sharon Kimmelman. I've known Jill for a number of years. She introduced me to a lot of other poets. I think she's a connection between myself and Sarfraz and many other people that were in the Passion of Poetry group. And so, Jill, what do you have for us today?
I have two fabulous poems from Eliot's newest book. And since I'm going to change just one, since no one else has read it, I really love Humor. It's on page 73. And although I planned a different one, as I'm sitting here, it's the one just opposite. And I love the tagline, especially humor. I remember as a little boy, my parents went to the mountains for 2-week hotel vacation, and they took me along. My mother and aunt decided one day to go for a walk. As I schlepped along a mountain road, we all heard my father's belly laugh echo from the valley below. I see humor in almost everything. Like Dad and my youngest son, I inherited the gift too. He performed stand-up comedy in Manhattan for many years. When Dad died, my 5-year-old daughter asked if he died from laughing too much. I thought it was a great way to be remembered. Really like that one, Elliot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the second one I relate to, as Elliot and I are Jewish, and when a synagogue closes, he's going to tell you about it. It's called Closed on page 71. When a synagogue closes, it is worse than a tragedy. It is a generational death, not a single death. It is the death of a Jewish community. On the high holidays, when the shofar sounds, the ghosts of those who prayed there rise. Remember the Simchas and the memorial Kaddish, many recited over the years. The building is now empty, sometimes torn down, sometimes used for other purposes. Yet, in the memories of past members, it still lives on.
Thank you. And Jill, I think you're going to read for us something of yours.
It's new. It was just published for the first time. And I would like to say that it was the first poem that I wrote after not being able to write for almost 9 months. So this is the poem that I wrote after that time while I was battling successfully breast cancer. And I'm very proud of it. Finding my dad again. For a long time, the only images I carried of my dad were from his last weeks, days, hours, minutes, our hands clasped. 3, 2, 1. I love you, Daddy. He could not have weighed more than 100 pounds. Jaundiced, chemo ravaged, wounded. I begged God to free him from this prison of relentless suffering. Decades later, now an adult with my own family and a son who carries Dad's name, I came across boxes filled with pictures, telegrams, letters, even the messages on floral delivery cards. It was all in there, daring me to peek, scavenge, even revel in the contents of that treasure trove buried within. There was my dad wearing a Kiss the Cook apron, folding Mom's homemade strawberry jam into each imperfect omelet, dusting them with confectionery sugar while mugging for Mom's brownie camera, forever capturing those 1 in a million milestone moments. There was my dad shepherding our young family around Disneyland, kneeling beside a creek bed where we learned to pan for gold. There was my dad lacing our skis at a winter resort. 3 kids under 7. 30 minutes later, the bunny slopes were but a frostbitten memory. There was my dad freeing our soggy feet while Mom, God bless her, passed hot chocolate and thermal socks. In a million milestone moments, in boxes that had seen better days, I found my dad again.
Beautiful. Welcome back, Jill. Wow, what a comeback poem.
It feels great to be back. Thank
It's
you.
great to have you back.
I never thought I'd hear the words thermal socks in a poem. You nailed it.
There you go. I do want to remind you all, be sure to put a little message in the chat so that Elliot can read those later and get a big head. Maybe he'll write a poem about them. Elliot, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read 3 pieces. The first one is the first poem in the book, which is September 11th Memorial, which I had spoken about before. It's a shorty. How many times must we read names? How many tears must we shed? How many children lost a parent? How many years must we remember? How many days is forever? That was my 9/11.
Thank you.
I was really touched with the memorial. My next one is a little different. It's more of a love poem, I guess you could say. The title, it's on page 3, is First Love. More than a reunion dance, 50 years had passed since they last held each other. Her hand gently placed near his neck, his on her waist to pull close. Old bodies touching. Slowly they danced together. Memories of 17-year-olds flashed to the present. Spouses forgotten. Teenage love simmers once more. And with maturity, the burners are turned down. They enjoy the moment for what it is, a return to what once was, yet will never flame again. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Lessa. Found the link.
And the last one I'm going to read is a playful one that a lot of times I think things through my head, and when I put it down on paper, it becomes a tongue twister. But this is actually a takeoff on, now I'm having a senior moment. But anyway, here we go. Winter, the title is Winter. Winter blankets, wool winter blankets, warm woolen winter blankets when it's freezing outside. Warm woolen winter blankets will warm like toast when you worm yourself inside, wrapped in a warm woolen blanket.
Love it. Willie whiz one.
Yeah, a lot of W's. I get carried away sometimes.
I love it. Oh. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share? Or, well, we have everybody in a captive audience here for Elliot.
Leave my wife out of this.
Should I
I've got a
interview
question
your
for
wife?
Elliot, Lisa.
Yes.
Lisa, I've got a question for
Okay.
Elliot. Yeah, so Elliot, I think the last time we had a conversation and we were talking about books, you were working on your beat poetry, which is fantastic. Can I just ask how that is going? And, have you got any plans for another book or anything for another collection of beat poetry?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's actually finished. I just have 15 more poems to have critiqued before I send it on to Lisa. The title of the book is Poems Mama Never Read Me, and which I think is apropos for beat poetry. And it's finished. I would probably say 90% of them are really beat poems. And it's done. It's just have to get critiqued and fine-tuned. There's some great pieces in there. I have two of them are actually 3 poems that I break into A, B, and C. And
Wow.
so it's done. It's just
Thanks, Elliot. Really
next
going to
week.
be looking forward. Really, absolutely, because I love your work, but I love your beat poetry. You got me into beat poetry because I've been I've got like a massive book of every single beat poet, and it's like it's like the Bible of it. So you got me into it. So everything you recommend, I always buy and I get. So I am reading it. I don't know if I could ever write a beat poet. I'm going to try. I'm going to try put my hand to it, but I just can't wait for it. So thank you, Elliot.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
I see Nina has her hand raised.
Hi there, it's
Rich. Okay.
representing Nina and me. We've known Elliot for over 40 years. And what I've learned about him is his humility is just so deep. And unless I ask him a lot of questions about what he's doing, he doesn't share it because he has so much humility. And I always look forward to seeing him and Laura. Hi, Laura. And when I sit down with Elliot, I learn a lot, but to learn a lot, I have to ask questions because of his humility.
Thank you, Rich.
Elliot, we love you, and Nina and I are so proud of what you do and who you are.
My flash is in my shirts.
Yeah, like yesterday.
Roberta?
I think Elliot mentioned that he moderates a couple of poetry groups, but I think that doesn't sufficiently explain how much time and how much interest and how much thought goes into the process of moderating and nurturing these poetry groups. Because Elliot is nothing if not completely devoted and generous with his time and encouraging. And when you're a poet, you go through a lot of, kind of ups and downs and self-doubts. And Elliot has been so encouraging. I don't know a better word. Modest and encouraging and devoted to the craft so that he set an amazing example for me, and maybe I can speak to other poets as well. But it's been a real life-changing kind of experience, as Safraz said.
Thank you, Roberta.
Randy.
Hi, everyone. Kind of going off of what Roberta just said, I completely agree with all of that. I know when I had started writing poetry, it was definitely kind of random for me. I was in need of kind of like a mental health type of outlet and just bought a journal one day and gave it a go. Fast forward to the Instagram and Elliot reaching out and joining the Wednesday critique groups. I feel like not only has he helped my craft of poetry so much, but in doing so, so many life hurdles I've overcome through writing. So I feel like not only have I grown as a poet, but as a person as well. And I give Elliot a lot of credit for that. So thank you so much, and congratulations on another wonderful book.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's beautiful.
Hi, Lessa.
Okay, let me just put
myself.
At least say congratulations to everybody. I don't want to be the only one not speaking here. My friend for a long time, we write poetry together and share work groups together. Congratulations. I always wish the greatest amount of luck to.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Yes, Nita was asking about the Pulitzer. Elliot's this book is going up for the Pulitzer to be considered. Absolutely.
I just wanted to mention, I think with the critique groups, one of the things that we all enjoy is the banter between Elliot and Bill. It's the best. I always said that Elliot and Bill should have their own podcast, because the banter between you guys is absolutely gold. It's absolutely fantastic. You're like the odd couple. You're amazing. But I think, as Brandy says, I think all of us, I when I wrote poetry, I wrote for about 10 years in secret. So I was the secret poet. No one actually know. Now I perform and I do all sorts of wonderful stuff. But I think it is literally, I think you and Bill's one of the best editors I've ever met, ever, hands down. He's one of the best. He can, he can see a poem like you can, Elliot, and you will instantly know what needs to be taken out and what needs to be put in, and to make it a great poem. And that's that's what you do for us, to be fair. And that's what you've done for me, to be fair. I'm bringing a lot of my old poetry to the critique groups that I was going to just kind of they were all archived, never going to be see the light of day. But what you've done is help transform them into something that can be published and people can enjoy. So thank you. So yeah, but you and Bill, class act.
Well, Bill does mainly sonnets. And whenever he does a prose piece, I always tell him, welcome to the dark side of the Force.
Amy changes my name to Luke, is what he changes my name to.
Well, often we see Bill in I think you wear a hoodie, a bit like Obi-Wan Kenobi. So you kind of have the look. So you're kind of going into that direction. So yeah, no, thank you guys, both of you, fantastic. Thank you for everything.
We have a lot of fun at the critique groups because it's not just poetry, but that's strangers become friends, and that's important. And you start to know people, and you start to know, I don't want to say backgrounds, problems, but you get to become friends, and you get to know them, and you get to know how they write, you get to know their life, and one thing leads to another, and that's what life is about. You can't go through life as just a stranger. You have to have friends. As my wife keeps telling me, stop writing and get out there.
And if you don't have friends, you can have poets.
Right. I have a lot of stanzas all over the country.
It's been one of my dreams to gather all the poets that I know together in person, but that's a lofty dream, but it would be lovely to have that adventure to be able to do that. Anybody else have anything like to say? Or
I've been in a writers group with Elliot for about 3 years, and he always makes us go back in time and laugh about it and honor it. Thanks, Elliot.
Thank you, Nancy.
so important. So important. Well, thank you all so much for coming out today. Oh, Lesa's got her hand up. Lesa?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Elliot.
Hi, nice to meet you finally.
I know. Look at all those beautiful books behind you.
It's just a picture.
Oh, it is.
I lifted that off the
Had
New
me
York Times
fooled.
digital.
You had me fooled. I just wanted to say congratulations, and I'm so happy to
Thank
be
you.
here, seeing you, reading some of your poetry. Sorry, caught you late, but I just wanted to let everybody know that since the beginning of my journey with writing, returning to writing, and finding this beautiful group on Instagram with poetry, Elliot has probably been one of my oldest, dearest friends and mentors. And his generosity it's paramount to everything I thought about when writing. And I just really appreciate you, Elliot. And I wanted to wish you congratulations on your new book and just thank you for all the time you've given me. Because you give, yes, like your other friend said, you give. You are a wonderful inspiration.
Thank you. It's appreciated.
Wonderful.
I want to
Thank you.
say that it's been such a pleasure to work with you, Elliot. I mean, I think this is our third book now together, and it's a joy when I see your manuscript comes through, because I already know it's going to be put together well, and half my job is done. Then the fun begins of getting to read all the poems and so
And the ones you reject.
very few, very few. In fact, there's one I recently looked at. I'm like, I don't think I have to pull anything out of. And
No, you
so,
didn't.
so yeah, I'm getting more. Either I'm getting more tolerant, or you're learning to know my language.
Well, I know how to sneak them in now.
Or maybe the older I get, the more liberal I become about it. I don't know. But anyway, but I really appreciate you and how you make my life easier. That's why I can say yes so frequently. And I also would say that Band Beat Poems is really still going strong, and I'm just so pleased about that. And I'm hoping that we can get Side Street up to the #1 bestseller. So hands up for Elliot and help him get up to #1, because he deserves it. His books deserve it. I do have one more item of business here, and I need Elliot to pick a number between 1 and 16.
14. It was a good year.
14, okay.
It was a good age.
Allison, you have won a copy of Side Street Poems. So
I can't wait. I'm fairly new to one of Elliot's poetry groups, and I've read, his poems on Instagram and in group, but I don't have the book yet, so that's fantastic. I'm so excited, and yeah, it's been a wonderful experience for me too. Just hearing everyone else's experiences, I can really resonate with that. I didn't share any of my poems for a very long time, and this is the first poetry group I've ever joined, never taken a creative writing class, and Elliot's been so welcoming and so just such a great mentor. My writing has just changed so much and grown so much since joining the group, and so congratulations, Elliot. I cannot wait, really, truly, to read Side Street Poems.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming out today.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
showing
you.
up.
Be
It is
safe
appreciated.
driving home.
Leslie,
Thank
nice to
you.
see you again.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Elliot.
indeed.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.